Hey guys, this is Kenjiro and welcome to another PaintShop Pro video. Today I'm going to talk about a very simple way of being able to incorporate 3D models into your image renders. Now to do this we're going to be using Blender 2.8. Now Blender recently updated their UI with version 2.8, so there aren't a lot of videos out there on how to use it. I'm not going to go deep. This is not going to be an intro to Blender. I'm not going to teach you what I'm doing. I will explain what some of the steps are, but I'm trying to use a example where using Blender is minimal, but the idea is that the output of Blender can be used to generate an image that you can incorporate, say, in PaintShop Pro. Now, everything I'm going to describe could be done completely in Blender, and the image could be fully rendered in Blender, and other effects could be applied, but the target audience of this video is to introduce somebody who's not familiar with Blender how to just incorporate 3D rendered images into a regular image editing workflow. So let's get to it. Now when you first start up Blender, there will be a splash screen that you can just click to make it disappear. And what you'll see is that there'll be a cube by default in the middle of the screen, and there will be a light source and a camera. These are all the things that we're going to need for the scene that we are going to create. Some basic movements are if you middle click and drag, you can change the view, and that's how you can kind of view your 3D object from all different angles. But instead of using a cube, what we're going to do is import a low polygon version of a turtle. The file I'm using I got from Thingiverse, which is a great database of website of folks sharing models primarily for 3D printing, but as you'll see in this case, it can also be used for rendering images. So we can go to File, Import, and then choose STL as our file format. So when the model comes in, you'll notice that it's going to be very large with respect to the default scene that you're given. This is primarily because each one of those squares on the grid you see on the floor in Blender acts as one unit, and a lot of times units for 3D printing are in millimeters. So for this object being a turtle to be large enough to print, it's going to be very many millimeters. So for our case, since we just want to render it for an image, we need to scale it down. So what I'm going to do is click on the model so that it's highlighted, and you can see it's highlighted by the orange outline, and then click Tab on the keyboard, and this is going to put it in edit mode. Now I can press S, and then I can drag my mouse, and you'll see that it'll shrink the object down. So we can see it's still a little bit too large even with respect to our light source and our camera, so I'll continue to shrink it down a little bit more. Same method, Tab for edit mode, S for scaling, and then drag, or can type in an explicit number of like 0.5 or 0.1 or whatever we want to do just to get this guy small enough to fit in our scene. Now what I want to do is I want to kind of get my view of the turtle that I want just right. But you'll notice my camera is not pointing at it. My camera is pointing down and underneath it, kind of at the origin of the red and green axes. But I want to get my view the way and the angle that I want it to be. And then what I can do is hit Control Alt Numpad 0, and what that'll do is put the camera so that it's looking along the same path that I'm looking. And then I can, with the camera selected, where you can see the orange highlight around the rectangle, I can press G for grab, and then I can move that camera around to place the turtle exactly where I want it to be. So now I've got my camera view situated. Next, what I want to do is have my lighting match. So what I want to do is have the turtle kind of fit this underwater scene. And typically underwater, your single light source is going to be straight above. So I'm going to take this point light source and highlight it by clicking on it. And then I can click on this cross arrows and then now select the arrows to move this light source exactly where I want it to be. And you'll have to kind of have a sort of 3D spatial ability to see things, right? Because you've got the line coming straight down from that light and you want to align that with the center of the turtle. And if ever I want to go back to the view that my camera's looking, I can just press numpad 0. And now I can test render it by pressing F12. And I can see, okay, this is what the lighting is going to look like, and this is roughly where the turtle's going to be in the picture. And if I don't like it or I do like it, this is the point where I can hit escape to go back to my editing view and then adjust um, anything from the lighting, the placement of the turtle, or the placement of the camera. So once I'm happy with how that all looks, I can click on the turtle, and then now I can click on the materials icon, which is sort of this globe looking guy. And then as you can see, I can rename the material, because what I'm really trying to do is change the color of the turtle. And so I can go to base color and then start manipulating the color wheel till it gets to a color that I'm okay with. And for this, I'm going with like a sort of dark greenish blue color. And you'll kind of get a sense of the color in the view that you're looking at right now, but if you want to see what it's really going to look like, you want to hit F12 again to see what the render is going to look like. And then we can iterate at this point with all those different pieces that I just mentioned until everything looks right, but keeping in mind that we'll still be able to do adjustments once we get this image into PaintShop Pro. So now that we have all the elements in place and where we like them and it's rendered the way we like, we can go to this camera tab. And what we want to do is make sure that we select transparent for the background. And this way, when we bring it into PaintShop Pro, it's going to be a lot easier to work with because it'll be isolated already. And so now in F12 rendered view, we can go to image and do save as, and then save that as a PNG wherever you like. And at this point, we are done working with Blender, unless if you want to ever go back and make adjustments to the model, the camera, or the lighting. So let's go ahead into PaintShop Pro now. So now in PaintShop Pro, we're going to start off by dragging our water scene into the workspace. And this is an image that I got off of Pexels, which is the standard place where I get most of my images that I do for my demos. And now we can take that rendered 3D model image, PNG, of the turtle and drag it as a layer on top. And you can see using the pick tool at this stage, we can arrange it, scale it a little bit, move it where we want it to be. So now that I've placed the turtle, what I want to do is create a mask. And the way I want to do that is by making sure that my match mode is set to opacity and use the magic wand tool and create a selection that is everything but the turtle. Then when I click the mask layer button and I say hide selection, then all that will show through in that mask is just the turtle. And really what I want to do here is just add some contrast using levels, but instead of just applying levels directly to the turtle, I'm going to use an adjustment layer, which is the less destructive method of being able to add some contrast effects. So here you'll see I'm just mostly darkening the turtle, at least darkening the shadows, but lightening the grays a little bit. So now we can see the turtle's in the scene, but it really doesn't blend in because it's kind of like it stands out a little bit too much, and those light rays don't seem to kind of have the effect of coming over the turtle. So what we're going to do is duplicate the water image, and then we're going to keep it within the mask, but then what we're going to do is reduce the opacity. So now what we have is the effect of the water kind of decontrasting the turtle, and then it has the effect of kind of giving off that the light rays are almost coming over the turtle, and now it feels much more like the turtle is in the water rather than just sitting on top of the background image. So this is all good, but that turtle looks a little lonely, so we're going to duplicate that entire group, and we're going to make a next set of turtles that are a little bit further into the distance. So what that means is that set of turtles is just going to be smaller in size and be kind of occluded or blocked by the background image even more, right? So the opacity is going to be less. So having duplicated that group, which was sort of the mask and everything, doesn't matter as much for all of the turtles that are going to be a little bit further back. So I'm just going to delete some of those extra elements and then place it where I want it to be in the scene. So again, duplicating now the background and then allowing its opacity to affect how far in the distance that turtle is. So as you can see, I've chose to make it so that that turtle is a little bit harder to see. And now I'll shrink it just to give it that sense of it being a little bit further out in the distance. And at this stage, you can use whatever level of variation you want to do to create the arrangement that you like, sort of the overall shape of the family of turtles. Here I'm kind of adding a little bit of pitch adjustment just to give some variability. And also note that if you really wanted to get a little bit more into this in Blender, you could, change the orientation of the fins or the head position by adjusting the model, and it'll give you even more variation between them. But now adjusting the opacity just to make it seem like they're further back in the ocean. And then now I'm going to speed this up a little bit, but just doing it again, but creating yet another set of turtles that are even further back and smaller. So therefore, their opacity is going to be even lower because they're going to be way off in the distance. And this is the stage where you want to be applying just your artistic sort of take on it, right? What is the shape? Where do you want the turtles to be? Iterate on it, kind of decide if you want to add a few more turtles, a few less turtles, maybe other animals, maybe not just turtles. My goal here was to just show like a family of turtles, but this is the stage where creativity is going to come into play. All right, so now that I have pretty much all of the turtles at the different layers, you really kind of get that sense now of this like family of them, just kind of drifting under this nice sunlit ocean. And really the last thing I kind of came up with is I felt like that front turtle was stood out just a little too much, so I have modified its opacity just to blend it in a little bit more. And that's it. So in summary, I hope this just inspires you and shows you really what's involved if you just want to use a software like Blender to import or create a 3D model and then add a light source, add a camera angle, render it, and then be able to use that in your PaintShop Pro type image. It's really powerful because you can do a lot to try to get the lighting to match, and then that way whatever this object is will blend a lot easier into your scene. Anyhow, as always, if you have any questions or you want to suggest any content, feel free to leave a comment. If you like to get updates on new content, feel free to subscribe. For a while, I've kind of had a blog going. It's still there, but as I've looked at it, it doesn't seem like there's really enough traffic going on over there to justify the amount of work that goes into making those entries. So I'm not going to continue making blog entries on my tutorials unless if they're specifically requested for, but if they are, I have no problem creating one. In the meantime, that's it for me, and I will see you guys next time.